The vines snapped like whips through the humid air, tearing branches apart as the creature surged forward. Liari sprinted between massive roots and shimmering undergrowth, every breath ragged in her throat. Her skin, emerald and slick with dew, shimmered under the canopy's fractured sunlight. Leaves tangled in her silver hair, and panic gripped her chest like a vice. The plant was gaining. It wasn't just any predator. It was a growthorn, a legendary carnivorous species native to the ruin-choked jungles of Viralia Prime. Ancient, sentient, and endlessly hungry, Liari had been warned. Even the elders of her tribe spoke of the growthorn in whispers. She hadn't believed them. The human had called them myths, just tall tales to keep children close to the tribal walls. But now she knew the truth. Now she was prey. The ground trembled. Something massive slammed down behind her. A root, no, a tentacle of twisted vegetation, snagged her ankle and jerked her off her feet. Her scream tore through the canopy as she crashed to the moss-covered floor. Before she could reach for her dagger, another tendril coiled around her waist, then her thigh. It was dragging her back. "No!" she shrieked, twisting with a strength born of desperation. Her nails clawed at the dirt, then at a half-buried chunk of crumbled stone from the ruins. It gave her a moment's resistance, just enough to turn and see the growthorn rise above her. Its maw opened like a blossoming flower of death. Rows of glistening teeth lined a pulsing red throat. The stench of acid and rot hit her like a wall. Vines wrapped tighter around her legs, lifting her toward the mouth. She cried out again, this time not in fear, but in fury. Her pride as a warrior refused to let her die screaming. She drew her ceremonial blade and sliced through one vine, then another. But the plant responded faster, wrapping her in more. Her arms were pinned, her chest tightened, a blur of black and silver exploded. From the undergrowth behind her, steel flashed. There was a grunt of exertion, and the vines holding her shuddered violently before falling limp. She hit the ground hard, gasping. Through her haze of confusion, she looked up and saw him, Dax Mercer, the human. His dark armor was slashed and caked in mud. Sweat streaked down his chiseled features. He held a massive blade, humming with energy, as he positioned himself between Liari and the growthorn. His eyes, those strangely soft yet dangerous brown eyes, locked onto hers for just a second. "You always pick the worst spots for a walk," he growled, voice tight with focus. "Shut up and kill it." Liari spat, her tone half panicked, half grateful. The growthorn roared, a deep, gurgling, hungry noise, and lashed out with 3 tendrils. Dax moved like a storm. His blade carved through the first vine, sidestepped the second, and slammed the flat of his sword against the third, redirecting it into a stone pillar. The ruins shattered under the impact. Liari rolled to her knees, cutting the last of the vines from her body. She coughed and scrambled to her feet, retrieving her blade. Dax was already moving, driving the creature back with a flurry of calculated swings. Each time the plant struck, he met it with brutal force. But it wasn't enough. The growthorn was massive, its core hidden beneath layers of armored bark and sinew. "Center of mass," Dax called out. "We need to get to the heart. It's shielded, too well." Liari's mind raced. "Then we go under." Dax's brow arched. "You want to crawl inside that thing?" "No," she said, eyes gleaming. "We distract it, then dive through. The root spine, that's where the heart is exposed, just for a second." "Damn it," he muttered. "You've been watching me fight too much." They split in opposite directions. Liari darted left, leaping onto the ruins for a higher angle. Dax rushed the beast's right, slashing and yelling to keep its focus. The growthorn responded, its massive petals snapping at the air, trying to capture either of them. The plan worked, barely. As the plant lunged toward Dax, Liari dove from above, rolling beneath the twisting root mass and stabbing into the narrow gap of exposed meat near the core. Her blade sank in. The plant screamed, an ear-piercing sound that made the ground quake and spasmed wildly. Dax was ready. He surged forward, blade first, and plunged it deep into the same wound. Light burst from the wound as the growthorn convulsed, then collapsed inward on itself with a wet, echoing groan. Silence. The jungle exhaled around them. Dax turned, panting, and found Liari slumped beside the creature's twitching corpse. She was coated in green blood and sap, her skin scratched and gleaming, but she was alive. He rushed to her side. Hey, you still breathing?" She smirked faintly. "Barely. You pulled me out just in time." His hand hovered over her shoulder, uncertain. "That thing nearly swallowed you whole." "Still not as bad as your cooking," she murmured. He laughed, a short, relieved sound, and helped her sit up. "Next time I save your life, I expect gratitude." She tilted her head, silver hair falling to one side. "And what does a human expect as gratitude?" Their eyes met, fire and storm, wild and strange. The moment stretched. Dax's voice dropped. "A drink, maybe a dance. A night without monsters." Liari's smile deepened. "We'll see if you've earned it." From somewhere deep in the ruins, another roar echoed. Dax groaned. "Nope, of course not. Jungle's never done, is it?" She stood beside him, sword in hand. "Then we keep moving, human. But stay close. That was the second time you saved me." "And counting," he replied, lips quirking. They disappeared into the green shadows, side by side. The sun barely pierced the dense jungle canopy above, casting a dim emerald glow on the undergrowth as the two warriors trudged through the thick foliage. Birds shrieked in the distance, and every rustle of leaves hinted at something watching. The ruins of the ancient civilization sprawled around them, long-forgotten stone towers twisted with vines and moss. Each step was a risk, each shadow a potential trap. Dax walked slightly ahead, his massive sword resting against his shoulder, his armor smeared with growthorn blood and cracked at the edges. He didn't show it, but Liari could see the tension in his shoulders. His body was trained for endurance, but something about this jungle wore him down faster than battle. Liari followed close, barefoot and sure-footed, her skin marked with bruises and dried blood, but her spirit unbroken. Her green fingers brushed aside oversized leaves as she scanned the shadows for movement. Occasionally, her eyes flicked toward the human in front of her, toward the man who had risked everything to save her. Again. "You're limping," she said. "Noticed," Dax muttered. "Bit hard not to, with a bruised hip and a cracked shin plate. You humans really do break easily. And yet I'm still walking." They exchanged a glance, half annoyed, half amused, and for a moment there was comfort in that simple bickering. Then the wind shifted. Liari froze. "Don't move," she whispered. Dax stilled, one hand tightening around his sword hilt. "What is it?" She didn't answer. Her eyes narrowed. The trees had gone quiet. No birds, no insects, no life. Then it struck. From the treetops. Something vast and coiled dropped down, a segmented beast of glistening carapace and writhing legs, its body as long as a skimmer jet and twice as fast. Its scream tore through the air as it dove straight for Dax. He barely rolled aside in time. The creature slammed into the earth with a crash, dirt exploding upward. Dax sprang to his feet and brought his sword down in a vertical arc. The blade scraped off the creature's armor with a jarring spark. "Liari, what the hell is that?" "Sakar. Centipede. Jungle's apex hunter." "Of course it is." Liari sprang into motion, leaping onto the creature's back and plunging her blade between its segmented joints. Acidic green blood hissed out, sizzling against her gauntlets. The Zikar shrieked and bucked, tossing her like a ragdoll. She hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of her. Dax didn't hesitate. He threw himself at the beast again, slicing low at its legs, trying to cripple it. It whirled toward him, maw gaping open, rows of chitinous pincers snapping forward. He ducked just in time, but the shockwave from the impact sent him sprawling into a ruined archway. "Dax!" Liari yelled, scrambling to her feet. He coughed, vision blurry. "Still alive! Give me a second!" The creature charged toward her now, tail whipping like a scythe. She danced around it, agile as a serpent, striking whenever she found an opening. But it wasn't enough. The Z-car was too fast, too armored. Her blade bounced off its shell more often than it pierced. Dax staggered upright, blood trickling from his temple. He glanced around the ruined archway and spotted it. A support beam, rotted but still standing. The beast had been chasing them around these ruins. Maybe that could be used. "Liari, drive it toward the wall," he shouted. "You want me to herd?" "A monster? Just trust me." Liari grit her teeth, then charged forward, screaming and throwing a dagger into the Z-car's side. The creature turned, enraged, and lunged at her. She ran, straight toward the wall. At the last second, she dove out of the way. Dax slammed his sword into the crumbling support pillar. The beam snapped. The wall collapsed. Massive stone slabs thundered down onto the Z-car, pinning it beneath a rain of rubble. The beast thrashed, legs twitching, then went still. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of Dax breathing hard. Liari lay on her back in the moss, staring up at the canopy. Her heart pounded, her body aching. "Third time," Dax muttered, walking over to her and offering a hand. "I'm starting to lose count." She took it, letting him pull her to her feet. Their hands lingered for a moment, longer than necessary. "You really have a death wish," she said softly. "I just don't like seeing you hurt." She met his gaze, and something unspoken passed between them. Something warm, strange, terrifying. They didn't speak of it. Instead, they kept moving. Hours passed as they followed a trail only Liari could read. A subtle path of disturbed foliage, ancient symbols carved into fallen stone. She had been here once, long ago, as a child. It was where her mother disappeared. And now, the signal she had tracked led her back here. The ruins of Terralyn Sanctum, buried deep in the jungle's heart. They emerged from a wall of hanging vines. The temple came into view, a vast stone pyramid covered in roots and moss, yet still pulsing with residual energy. "This is it," Liari whispered. Dax looked around warily. "Feels off." That's because something is still alive here. They approached the temple. Vines slithered along its walls like veins. At its base, a large stone door stood sealed shut. Liari reached into her satchel and withdrew a glowing crystal. "A life seed?" Dax asked. She nodded. "The last one. The temple only opens to my bloodline. This will prove who I am." She pressed the crystal to a slot in the stone. A tremor shook the ground. The door split with a groaning sigh, and a cold wind spilled out from the darkness within. As the threshold opened, Liari looked at Dax. "Once we step inside, everything changes. This is where I was born. This is where they tried to kill me." Dax tightened his grip on his sword. "Then it's where we finish this." They entered. The air inside was cold and stale. Lights flickered to life along the walls, bioluminescent symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. Statues lined the corridor, depicting ancient warriors, priests, and something else, something alien. Liari paused before one of the carvings, tracing its lines. "My ancestors weren't just of this world," she murmured. "They came from the stars." Dax frowned. "You mean your people are part alien?" She nodded. "And something inside. This temple doesn't want that secret getting out." As they moved deeper, a low growl echoed through the stone corridors. Something had awakened. The shadows shifted, and from the far end of the chamber, glowing eyes opened. The eyes in the darkness blinked, then multiplied, dozens of them lining the corridor like lanterns. Dax instinctively stepped in front of Liari, sword drawn. The air grew thick, charged with ancient malice. Liari's breath hitched. Sentinels. What kind of sentinels have that many eyes? Dax asked. The living kind. Bio-sculpted guardians. Created to protect the temple from intruders. Well, it's not working. We're not intruders. They don't know that. The first creature emerged, skittering from the wall like an armored spider, but humanoid in shape, its body grown from stone and bone, pulsing with faint green energy. Behind it, others followed, silent, fast, and terrifying. Dax and Liari turned, back to back as the corridor became a blur of motion and shadows. The sentinels moved without sound, but their intent was clear. They were here to kill. One lunged. Dax met it mid-air, blade cleaving it in half. The creature shrieked, green fluid splashing the stone floor as its body twitched and died. Another. Sentinel struck low, aiming for his legs. He parried, spun, and drove his blade through its neck. Liari chanted, her hand glowing with primal energy as she unleashed a shockwave that hurled 3 sentinels back down the hall. Her eyes glowed the same shade as the temple's light, as if something ancient was awakening in her. They're testing us, she said between strikes. Not just trying to kill, judging if I'm worthy. Dax decapitated another sentinel with a grunt. You'd think they could have left a quiz instead. One creature broke through, pouncing on Liari. She screamed as its claws raked across her arm, but before it could sink its teeth into her, Dax tackled it from the side and drove his blade deep into its core. The last of the sentinels fell with a thunderous crash. Silence returned. Breathing hard, Dax checked Liari's wound. You okay? She nodded, though blood ran freely down her green arm. It's shallow. I've had worse. He tore off a strip of cloth from his shirt and wrapped it around her arm with gentle fingers. Let me take care of you for once. Their eyes met again. In that flickering corridor, amid blood and dust, the tension between them grew unbearable. For a moment, Liari let her hand rest on his chest plate. Why do you keep saving me? Because I don't want a world without you in it. She blinked, startled by the raw truth in his voice. But before she could speak, the ground trembled. The wall ahead split open, revealing a massive inner sanctum. At its center sat an overgrown throne of roots and crystal, and atop it, a pulsating pod wrapped in thorned vines. This is it, Liari said, voice distant. The heart seed. What remains of my mother? What do you mean? She merged, with the temple's core when they tried to assassinate her. The only way to preserve her spirit. But something corrupted it, twisted it. The pod pulsed again, and the vines writhed. One uncoiled like a whip, striking out. Dax shoved Liari aside and took the hit. The vine wrapped around his torso, lifting him off the ground. Thorns pierced his armor, drawing blood. He cried out, struggling to breathe as the vine squeezed. Dax! Liari! Didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, her blade slicing at the vine. Another tendril shot toward her, catching her midsection and flinging her across the room. She slammed into a pillar and slid to the floor, dazed. The pod split open with a hiss, revealing a monstrous form. Not her mother, but something born from the fusion of root, memory, and rage. A spectral figure cloaked in petals and teeth, with eyes that mirrored Liari's. Child of traitors, it hissed. You returned to steal what you abandoned. Liari forced herself to stand. I came to free you, not fight you. I am not yours to free. I am what remains when hope dies. The creature hurled a wave of force, knocking Liari back again. Dax, still entangled, used his last burst of strength to yank a dagger from his belt and sever the vine binding him. He dropped hard, gasping, then crawled toward Liari. You have to end it, he rasped. She's not your mother anymore. Tears welled in Liari's eyes, but she nodded. Her voice cracked. She wouldn't want this. She stepped forward, calling on her bloodline's power. Her veins glowed like molten gold, and her body lifted off the ground, radiating heat and energy. The spectral plant creature screamed, rearing back. "I am Liari Tevela, daughter of Queen Yareth, last blood of the verdant line." With a shout, she hurled her energy like a spear. It struck the creature in the heart. The room exploded in light and wind. Vines shattered, roots disintegrated. The creature screamed one last time, then vanished. Liari collapsed. Dax crawled to her side, pulling her into his arms. "Hey, stay with me." She blinked, smiled faintly. "You're always catching me when I fall. You're always worth catching." She raised a hand to his cheek, touched his skin gently. "I saw her in the end. She remembered me." She smiled. Dax nodded, brushing silver hair from her face. "She's free now." Liari nestled against his chest, exhausted. "So are we." For a long moment, they just held each other in the ruins of the past, two survivors of blood and bond. Then the temple began to shake. "Of course," Dax muttered, scooping her up into his arms. "Self-destruct sequences. Why not?" She laughed weakly. "Run, human." They sprinted down the collapsing corridor as stone crashed behind them, light flickering wildly. The exit loomed ahead, but so did the jungle. Freedom waited, and so did something else. The jungle erupted in a wave of green light as the ancient temple behind them collapsed in a thunderous roar, swallowed whole by the earth and overgrowth. A final plume of dust billowed outward, shaking trees and scaring flocks of alien birds into the air. Dax didn't stop running until they were far enough to breathe without tasting ash. Liari's weight in his arms was both comforting and terrifying. Her breathing was shallow, and her skin, usually a deep emerald, had gone pale like soft jade. He knelt beneath the twisted canopy, laying her carefully among a bed of wide, petal-leafed ferns. "Liari? Liari, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open, dazed. "I'm here, barely." "You're hurt. That last burst. What did it cost you?" She gave a weak smile. "Most of my energy. Maybe more. I burned through blood-right magic. Stuff my ancestors saved for a time of need. I think this counted." Dax's jaw clenched. He pulled a medkit from his pack, hastily breaking open nanostims and binding up cuts, even though he knew this wasn't something mere Earthborn tech could fix. She stopped his hand. "It's okay, Dax. We won. We didn't win if you don't make it." He looked at her, really looked. Hair like starlight caught in vines, skin like sun-warmed stone, eyes that shimmered with galaxies. This alien, this woman, was everything he hadn't known he needed, and he was not going to lose her. "I need you to listen carefully," he said. "There's a shuttle beacon in my pack. If I can boost the signal, maybe get the orbiting colony. Ship to send evac, but it'll take time." She nodded. "Then hurry." He stood, but hesitated. "I never said it, Liari, but I think I fell for you somewhere between the fourth tentacle beast and your second rescue." She chuckled, the sound rasping. "You're not so bad yourself, Terran." He leaned down and kissed her. Not as a warrior, not in desperation, but as a man who had survived death and chosen love. She kissed him back, fingers weakly brushing his face, before slipping into unconsciousness. Dax turned and sprinted. Minutes later, he found the highest ridge in the area and set up the beacon dish. The signal fizzled at first, scattered by the surrounding flora, but he climbed a vine-laced tree, antenna in hand, and managed to hit a stable pulse. Static buzzed, then cleared. "Colony ship Nova Thorn. This is Pathfinder Dax Colburn, ID 47 Delta. Emergency evac needed. 1 critical. Coordinates uploaded. Repeat. Emergency evac." For a heartbeat, silence, then a voice, crackling, but clear. "Colburn? We thought you were dead." "Close enough. We need immediate medlift." and prep your alien medtech. This one's not human. Copy. Help is en route. Hang tight. By the time he climbed down and returned to Liari, her breath had grown shallower. Her body trembled with every exhale. He knelt beside her again. Hey, reinforcements on the way. Her lips barely moved. Knew you'd find a way. I always will, he whispered. Minutes dragged. The jungle pressed in. The vines around them twitched, reacting to the fall of the temple or perhaps sensing blood again. But Dax stayed still, his sword across his knees, eyes scanning every shadow. Then, a soft hum in the air. The dropship broke through the clouds like a descending star. Twin engines scorched leaves into flame as it hovered, and medics in armored suits descended on cables. Dax didn't wait. He waved them down and helped lift Liari into the emergency stasis pod, eyes never leaving hers. You're going to make it, he said, his voice trembling. The medics nodded. She's stabilizing. That energy burst nearly rewrote her nervous system, but she's got a chance. She's stronger than anyone I've ever met, Daxie said. She's got more than a chance. They lifted off, jungle falling away beneath them, the wreckage of history left behind. Days later, aboard the orbiting station, Dax stood beside a transparent med pod. Liari's form floated inside, skin glowing gently under the regeneration lights. The doctor said her recovery was miraculous. But they didn't understand it wasn't just medicine healing her. It was hope. The pod hissed open. She blinked against the light, then smiled weakly at him. Didn't I tell you not to let go? I held on, he said, tight. She reached out and he took her hand. You saved me, she whispered. You saved me first. She sat up slowly, bones clicking into place. Where does that leave us? I don't know, Dax said, but I'll go wherever you go. She paused, her expression unreadable. Even if I return to rebuild my world? He nodded. Especially, then, because I want to build it with you. Liari studied him, then finally let her expression crack into a grin. Then let's begin with one promise. She leaned in and kissed him. Longer this time. Deep, unhurried, and full of all the things they'd never said aloud. And in that moment, surrounded by steel and stars, two souls, once separated by planets, wars, and fate, chose each other again. Not because they had to, but because love was the only battle they wanted to keep fighting. The end. Enjoyed this story? If you want more HFY sci-fi romance with thrilling battles, alien worlds, and impossible love stories that conquer galaxies, let me know the next title you'd like. Brought to life. Drop a new concept or idea, and I'll forge your next tale among the stars.